This episode will be completely taken out of context. Welcome to the Fact Check This podcast.
All right, Fact Check This podcast, and I made the announcement on Facebook and Twitter, X, whatever. So if you follow me on either of those, hopefully you saw it already. And if you did not, or you don't follow me on social media and you just listen to the show, which seems like it might be odd, but I guess it's always something that could possibly happen. I will be ending the show within the next couple months. This is officially, if you follow on the podcatchers, episode 393. Seems like a lot. That does not count the dozens upon dozens of daily short content that I did for a long time, random live streams just to shoot the shit, play games, do dumb stuff. So I started this in October of 2020, and I am going to wind it down. Today's topic is the Invincible show and some of the changes that got made between the comics and the show. And Invincible was one of my favorite episodes that I did with Sean, talking about that first episode of Invincible and how that ended, and then talking about the show that first season. We talked about comics and video games and stuff. We did several different episodes together. And even though this wasn't explicitly a show for me and him to do together, a lot of the stuff that I like to and want to talk about came from conversations that I had with him. Things that I wanted him to know, to grow up to be a better man, to understand the world, and to be a good young man. And I just keep finding every week when I sit down to do this that I just don't have it in me the way I did before. So I have this episode and two more that I actually have planned content for, and then that'll take me to 395. And then for the last 5 episodes, I would like to sit down and just kind of pull different people that I've talked to over the years and catch up and shoot the shit. And then have episode 400 be the last one. So that's kind of the plan. What the timeline is for when that actually concludes, I don't know. Like I said, I do have content planned for at least 3 more, or this and 2 more episodes after this. So I should reasonably be able to get those done in the next few weeks. And then it's just scheduling out and finding out who wants to talk and when, and banging out those last 5. And those will be a lot less content driven and more just conversations with old friends. So, the Fact Check This podcast will be coming to a close within the next couple months. My expectation is by the end of summer, I'll be done with it. I will continue to write on my Substack. My mom, when she saw my post about ending the show, she called me because she thought I was going to stop writing as well, and that's not happening. The Substack will continue. It's just the show that I'm gonna stop doing. And my brother was also concerned because he likes the morning show. The morning show will continue as well. I will keep doing the morning show with all of those morons for as long as they want to do it. And the same for Peddling Fiction. I will continue to do Peddling Fiction with Johnny for as long as he'll have me on, and he wants to keep doing it. So it's just Fact Check This podcast that is going to be coming to a close within the next couple months. That's it for the announcements at the top. Let's jump right in. So, as I said, Invincible was a show that Sean and I really liked, and I have followed some of the comics. I've tried to kind of read the comics up to where they are in the show, and I haven't. And something that I learned with a lot of stuff was, if there's a book and there is a show, watch the show first. Because there's a good chance if you read the book and then you watch the show, you're going to be really, really disappointed in the show. Whereas if you watch the show, you can enjoy the show, and then you go read the book and it's like, oh, there was all this other stuff and so much like extra depth to it. Like, and that's usually what the case is. It's usually the book can convey things in a way that a show can't, with narration and different subtext and everything else. There's just a way that a book can paint the picture for you, especially in your mind, that a show may not be able to exactly portray. So I have been watching the show, and then I will read in the books up to the point that the show. And there were changes that were made here and there, and I'll talk about all of those. And like, the show was good, and the show is still good. Season 4 was very good. The differences between the book and the show, I don't think take away from the show. It's just different. But there's been some backlash over one particular character, Tech Jacket, being gender swapped to female in the show. And Tech Jacket was a popular enough character in the comics to get his own spinoff in the comics. And so that kind of upsets people that the character of Tech Jacket got gender swapped in the show. So I'm going to go through. Robert Kirkman was interviewed by IGN, and he explained why they made some changes between the show and what the original was in the comics. So we'll read that, and then I'll kind of talk about my thoughts on a lot of it. Invincible creator Robert Kirkman says Tech Jacket was gender swapped to address a comic book shortcoming. Your default when you're not really paying attention is yourself. Invincible creator Robert Kirkman has explained why the Prime Video show chose to go a new direction in season 4 by introducing a gender-swapped version of Tech Jacket. The mind behind the animated superhero series and the comic book was based and the comic book it's based on talked about why he chose to veer from the source material during a conversation with the rep. When speaking about the events of the show's latest season, he also touched on why Tech Jacket is now known as Zoe Thompson instead of the Zach Thompson from the comics. Kirkman acknowledged that the original version of the Iron Man-like technology-based hero is a fully well-rounded character who was strong enough to warrant its own spin-off stories in the Invincible universe. For the purposes of revisiting the Viltrumite War through the lens of the Prime Video show, though, he felt Zach wasn't bringing much to the table that you're not getting from Oliver or Mark. He added, there's just a lot of similarities there. And in fact, if you look at Mark and Zach in the comics, they literally look alike. Very, very similar. Season 4 of the Prime Video Invincible series sees the story's heroes leave Earth in hopes of bringing an end to the Viltrumite War. But tackling foes like Conquest and Grand Regent Thrag means assembling a team. In the source material, the core team that heads out into battle is Mark, Nolan, Oliver, Alan the Alien, Battle Beast, Space Racer, and Zach Thompson, an all-male group. The Prime Video show pulls from a comic book, so it has and likely will continue to make changes from the original story as it continues. Swapping Zach for Zoe while maintaining the Tech Jacket name is a decision that made sense to the Invincible crew, not only to help break up the male-dominated team, but to make the show better as a whole. and you can argue whether or not it does that. I don't know that it makes it better. I don't also think that it makes it any worse. One of the downsides of Invincible is Corey Walker and I were 23 and 21 when we started that book. And your default when you're not really paying attention is yourself, Kirkman said. Every time we introduce another character, oh, look, it's another white male. Who knew? It's just a shortcoming that we hadn't quite noticed and done our due diligence to correct. Invincible Season 4 came to an end when its last episode, Don't Leave Me Hanging Here, premiered last week, April 22nd. While we wait for any news on Season 5, you can check out our 10 out of 10 review of the finale. You can also read about what Kirkman had to say regarding the future of the show. Now, to be fair, Tech Jacket is not the first gender swap that has been done in the show. And, as I said, I don't think it adds anything to it. But I also don't feel like it takes anything away. The Tech Jacket character still serves the purpose of the Tech Jacket character. He or she did not have any particular, it didn't matter one way or the other if the character was a male or female. And that's where, and they didn't make Tech Jacket being a girl a big deal. It wasn't something that, like, they didn't make Tech Jacket a girl and then spend the next 6 episodes gushing over, oh, girl power. No, it was just, they just took the character and made him into a her. Easy enough. And that's fine. I think I need to blow my nose home. Sorry. All right. I think the biggest problem that I have when there are big changes made to a character is when it's like a really, really main character, that character being a male, being, whatever they were to begin with, and then getting swapped to some DEI, basically to a DEI hire sort of a character, is when they make everything about the character that's important that identity. Like, a character can still be good regardless of race, gender, whatever, as long as the character is written well and executed well. But the big problem that they usually have is when they take one of these characters and they race swap or gender swap them, and then they exclusively focus on the new race or the new gender and make it all about that, and then the character loses any of the actual value that they had originally. For instance, now, like I said, race and gender swapping has been done throughout this show. Nobody made a big deal of it until Tech Jacket. Yeah, there were some mentions of it here and there, but like Tech Jacket is where it became a deal. But if they don't do the Tech Jacket spinoffs with the animated series, then does it change anything? Does it matter? And even if they do, I don't know that it still necessarily affects it a whole lot. Where they've done this before and done it terribly was actually in the first couple seasons with Mark's original girlfriend, Amber. So in the comics, Amber is just like boring, basic white bitch. Like, she is just a placeholder for annoying girlfriend, but she doesn't really, like, she's not overbearing. She's not anything other than she's just the girl that Mark like really likes and kind of pines over, and she doesn't have a huge role in the comics. What they did with Amber in the animated series was they race swapped her, And then they made her just a fucking bitch. She's always mad at Mark. She's always griping at him. She's always giving him a hard time because he's literally saving the planet and she wants to do this other stuff. And they make it like a girl power thing where, you know, she's standing up for herself as a woman. And like they really in the show build up the Amber character as this, you know, strong, independent female. And that just falls flat on its face. It makes her come across as just horrible, like a horrible person. That is where race swapping and then changing a character was actually done piss poorly. But nobody got mad about that. So, you know, it's as things have progressed. And I think also that has something to do with the changing of time, which is why the race swapping, gender swapping stuff is getting more attention now, because we've lived through it and seen it be done so many times in such a horrible, just miserable way, where they completely fuck these characters up because they race or gender swap them, and then they make everything about the character be that change, that it's impossible to not look at a race or a gender swap like Tech Jacket and start to be like, oh, this shit again. It's, if you do the character well, then it's fine. But when they fuck the character entirely up and make the character all about this new identity, then it becomes terrible. And that, like, Rex Splode in the series, in the comics, Rex is a white dude. In the animated series, he's Hispanic. They don't make a big deal of it. He's still the exact same character. They just made him Hispanic instead of white. One of the characters that gets killed early on, the green now I can't remember the shape or the green chick's name. Anyway, in the comics, that character is a male. In the show, it's female. There's also a flashback episode that does like Adam Eve's origin, where the character is male in that flashback, and Kirkman explains it like it's not the character is not the superpower, it's this green gem that they swallow that gives them the power, so it can be passed from person to person. The power is not the person, the power is the thing, the item. And also that character's purpose is to get murdered by Green Ghost. Sorry. But it doesn't matter. That character's purpose is to get murdered by Omni-Man. So, like, male, female, who cares, right? Shrinking Ray in the comics is a male. In the series, they make Shrinking Ray a female. It doesn't change Shrinking Ray as a character. They actually use that in a really they use it to actually develop the character a lot more and give Shrinking Ray and Rex like a relationship, and it's really well done. Like, there are ways to do race and gender swapping of characters that's fine. And for me, I feel like Tech Jacket, it's fine. She still serves the same purpose in the show that he served in the comics, right? So, like, we don't have to get all worked up and bent out of shape over every single little change just because it's slightly different from original work that probably most people didn't even know existed until the first season of Invincible came out to begin with. But also, like I said, and, you know, Kirkman said, when they're 21 and 23 and there are a couple white dudes writing this comic, they create it based on themselves and they don't think about, other things. And that's fine. That's kind of how creative works are. I thought when I read that, I thought back to, I actually have like short stories and stuff that I had written when I was in like high school and college of different things. And, I think back and I look at those stories that I had written and it's like, yeah, I did the same thing. Not that I would write them any different now, but it's what you do. But he is having to deal with, he's actually famous and popular, and this thing is famous and popular. And so there is an outside pressure to do this stuff, to add the extra DEI type of stuff into this so that it can be socially acceptable for the people who matter, who don't actually matter. The people who matter are your audience and your fan base and the people who actually like will watch it and will pay to see stuff. And like I said, the problem is we have seen all of that rammed down our throats for the last several years to the point that people have gotten fed up with it. So now what you have is, even if a race or gender swap character is done incredibly well, there is going to be pushback because it's been done so much and it's been done so poorly that you have to expect people are going to lose their mind when you do it. And it doesn't matter what the explanation for it is. Explaining it as, when we were 21 and 23, we wrote ourselves as every character, and you grow up and grow out of that. It's like, yeah, that's what you were told to say so that you don't have to admit that the studio was like, hey, you have to put this many, other characters. You have to have this many Black and Latino and trans and male and women and like all of that. You have to have all of this stuff. If you don't have all this stuff, we can't make it. Like to avoid admitting that the studio is forcing you to do this bullshit. You say that, we grow up and we learn better as we get older. We don't. We absolutely don't. And it's fine not to. You write what you know. Like, I, as a rural white dude who has pretty well lived where I live right now for basically my entire life, just different states, different places, rural, whatever, predominantly white areas. I can't write a Black female urbanite character. I know absolutely fucking nothing about that. I think it would be insulting for me to create a character like that. Like, what do I know about it? I'm just going to do bad. And it's possible that you could have conversations with people and write characters like that based on other people's experiences and stuff like that. I don't know if that necessarily brings anything to a character. And really, if you're writing something like Invincible or, a comic like that, does it even fucking matter? You want to write a good, compelling story. And like for what Invincible is, where we've entered space and we have aliens and all this other stuff. And mostly this is becoming like a intergalactic war type of a show at this point. Do you really need to add any of that stuff? Like, do we need DEI in space? Really? It just feels forced. And it feels disingenuous. And that's the problem that anybody making something going forward is going to have, is if you start changing characters, race and gender swapping characters around from original source material, then you're just going to be viewed as doing it for some virtue signal bullshit. Unless you do something that really makes it stand out as like, hey, this is like special and unique. as long as the character is good, I don't think it should matter, but it's going to. And like, what's really sad about that is that's the world that all of the forced inclusivity has created by ramming it down people's throats and doing it in the worst way possible. You have now set most of society off to it. Most people don't want anything to do with it. And that's just where we are. Maybe they can figure out how to do it well, continue to do it well in future seasons, and maybe get out ahead of some of it. Like, this is what we're going to do with this character. This is why we're making the changes, blah, blah, blah. Don't give some generic, like, make the changes feel significant, not just change for the sake of change. That's the only way that you can win with that. But also, how do you make it feel significant when most of your audience feels like you're just being forced to do this because of some woke agenda? That's tough. And video game manufacturers are coming up on the same thing. You keep seeing games coming out that have these DEI characters. And like, it wouldn't even be a problem if the games were good, if the characters look good, but they don't. The characters are ugly and unimpressive, and the games aren't very good. And the messaging that the games try to push is woke agenda instead of just good narrative, story, and gaming. At least Invincible is still good as far as the actual story and the show and like the content goes. You don't have to throw a bunch of DEI bullshit in to be a good show. But you can throw all that stuff in and ruin one. As long as they continue to make it good and make it relatively true to the source material and not allow that stuff to ruin it, then I think it's fine. But how far will a studio let them go before it finally starts to be like, all right, now you've got to push more of this. Like, you got to push more of this and ruin it. Johnny and I talked about the upcoming Odyssey movie from Christopher Nolan. And like, when you look at the requirements from the Oscars for have to have X number of lead characters, be from some minority, and have to have X amount of the crew, and all of these stipulations for if you're going to win an Oscar, you have to do all this stuff. That's not going to make good movies. That's not going to make good products. That's going to make stuff that checks all of the boxes to qualify for an Oscar. And the Oscar, like the people who the critics and the people who give movie awards are going to be like, oh yeah, it's beautiful, well done, great. The audience, the people who actually go to see these movies and stuff, as soon as they see that, like what's currently happening with the Christopher Nolan, the Odyssey, as soon as people see that, they're immediately turned off to it. They're like, why the fuck would you do this? And if you're going to do this, why the fuck would I spend money on it? You're clearly not making this for me. So why should I go see this? Outer Worlds 2 is a perfect example. I saw the trailer for the game and I was like, okay. Like, Outer Worlds 1 was decent. It was fine. I don't have any interest in investing money in Outer Worlds 2. Just strictly based off the look. It could be a fantastic game. I will never know, because they clearly did not create something for me. They created it to check a bunch of boxes and be fucking retarded. And understanding as a creator of content, understanding your audience and what your audience wants is very important. But also understanding what your audience objectively does not want might be more important. You can make a mediocre game, and as long as it doesn't include a bunch of shit your audience doesn't want, you can still do all right. You can make a mediocre product that, as long as it doesn't have a bunch of the, like, at this point, with the way the culture war is unfolding, if something does not include a bunch of DEI bullshit, it can be mediocre and still do fantastic, because people are going to flock to that just because it doesn't try to ram a progressive agenda down your throat. And that's fucking sad, because I mean, that's the end of entertainment media as far as I'm concerned. Like, if we've got to the point where it doesn't matter what the content or what the quality of the content is, it's just, does it or doesn't it ram progressive bullshit down your throat? We've failed. I think it's fucking over. Hopefully it's not, though. We do see good stuff coming out that also doesn't have a lot of that. So maybe there is hope. Maybe some of the industry is starting to learn. And hopefully the parts of these industries that don't learn will die. That'll do it for today. I will be back next week to recap the final season of The Boys. Oh, boy. Anyway, we'll get to that next week. Hope you all have a great rest of your week and weekend. For those of you who are going to the Alan Mosley live event, I will see you there. And for those who aren't, I will see you next week. Later.